mission. And, I mean, I'm young and stupid and I'm up for anything. So, sure, flying to Guatemala City, I can do that. Anybody can do that. That's nothing to it. And I get to, the airport, get off the plane. Somebody's there to meet me, but they never showed up or we never connected. So here I am in Guatemala City and I don't speak Spanish. Um, Although I was relatively comforted by the fact I spoke some French, and French and Spanish were awfully similar. So I figured I can fake my way through this. Um, and I'm hanging around like nobody's there. And the place that I needed to go is considerably outside of Guatemala City. It was out in the country. So I'm going, so how am I going to get there? How am I going to get in touch with these people that I'm supposed to be, you know, working with? And fortunately, one of the employees for the airline that I had flew in on, um, somehow or another, we got talking about the situation, and he went, no problem. I live out that way. I'll give you a ride out there. So I went, oh, that was great, man. Thank you. He didn't have to do that. He just could have said, good luck, sucker. But, he was really gracious. And the whole time up there, it was nice having somebody that was a national to talk to in English. And, he's just telling about, this village, that village, this is how this goes, this is how that goes. So I got a really good education in Guatemala and all of that. So extremely thankful. Little, it maybe seems like little things, but in terms of offering hospitality, we're looking at Abraham, right? One of your favorite Old Testament characters. How did Abraham show hospitality? Yeah, he was looking for people coming. Even before, even though we kind of really focused on Genesis 18, but Genesis 12 still plays in there, and the whole issue with Sodom and Gomorrah. What kind of attitude did Abraham have toward Sodom and Gomorrah? Yeah, what kind of attitude or relationship did he have with Sodom and Gomorrah? Abraham. I mean, they were best buds. They hung out all the time together. They were. No. Yeah, he went to their rescue. What happened? Abraham, or Abram, if you prefer, in that context. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, isn't that's all kind of curious. Speaks to their depravity for sure. But what does that say about Abraham? Yeah, compassion. And even when they're just ruthless stinkers, so to speak, you still have compassion for those people. You want to write them off. Well, he had relatives. He was he was kind of bold. How did he show his boldness? Okay, he bowed down. That's right. You take God to task. Tisk tisk. How could you do that, God? That's just not like you at all. I'm shocked. Oh my. No, well, not necessarily. I mean, he was quite humble, but persistent in his approach. Started out with 50. Do you think he really believed that there were 50 people that were going to go, "Oh, sure, we'll repent and change our ways"? It could have happened. I'm just wondering what was going through his mind. Like, nah, there'll never be 50, but I'll start at 50 and then I'll whittle my way down till I get to. Surely there's got to be 10. Right, right. Yeah, I mean, you know what? I figured Sodom and Gomorrah was a pretty heavily populated metropolitan type of an area. Um, it was certainly worth the effort of the was it? I think those 4 or 5 kings that took him captive and ran off with the booty and were whooping it up. And Abraham's household was somewhere in the thousand, uh, and he gathered his men and had to take on those kings in order to get back his nephew and family, as well as deliver those taken hostage from Sodom and Gomorrah. So you would have figured that there was a pretty decent sized population to have worked with. So 50, like, what's the population in Nashville? I don't know, 600,000? Yeah, right. You can Google it. Um, so if it were 600,000, 1% of that would be 60,000, or 10% rather. 1% would be 6,000. So 50 out of whatever the population of, it's speculation. But even that probably would have been a pretty small percentage of what the overall population was. But he's like, I got to start somewhere. He gets the courage to go down to 10. And that still doesn't cut it. Hospitality, he was certainly hospitable towards Sodom and Gomorrah, even though his own nephew was involved. He wouldn't just say, just give me my nephew. You can take care of the rest of these suckers because they're all misfits and they're not worthy of any kind of rescue anyway. You'd be doing, the area a favor to get rid of these guys. But he rescued them all. And on top of that, what was his response to they made him an offer, right? And what was his response? Yeah, right. Says, nope, lest you say I made Abraham rich. I mean, he was already very, very wealthy anyway. But he said, the guys that came with me, they can have their spoils, just in fairness to them, because they put their lives out on the line. But nothing for me. You can have everything back that the boys don't feel like they want a share of. So he was gracious, hospitable, even towards people whom he knew to be, for lack of a better word, degenerate and really an open rebellion against God. Um, how easy when you go outside your local neighborhood nation? I'm assuming most of you traveled outside the U.S. at one time or another. Uh, how comfortable do you feel that first moment you walk off the plane or the boat or train or whatever means of transportation got you there, and you enter into that new environment? It's like, sure, I got this all figured out. It's just like home. Oh, go ahead. Oh, uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, okay. Right. So here's God telling Abraham, get up, leave your family, leave your city, leave your nation, and head on down the road to where I tell you to go. And I'm going to show you this great, vast land that is going to be yours, and your um, descendants. It never really actually ended up being Abraham's. He just kind of wandered through it, knowing that eventually one day it would be a nation populated by his descendants. That's easy enough to do, right? If God came to you today and said, "Well, rise, get up, and go to Africa and live in the country of Chad," you'd be going, "Yes." Okay. Okay, camel caravan. I mean, how comfortable can that be? Donkeys and camels. And how long did it take? And you pack up all your stuff and you move to, I don't know if there was major language differences or they could share a common language that they could be able to communicate in. But it's a whole different ball game when you walk into another country. It's like, okay, so I mean, today we go, so where do I shop? Where do I get my clothes? Where do I, whatever? In that case, you still say, well, where do I find fields for my flock and places to set up tents and engage in the different types of labor that are necessary to keep a family proposition running? They carried all their shops and stuff with them pretty much, I would imagine. You got to be able to care for the livestock, be able to produce some type of food, or at least have some means of being able to barter or acquire food. So I mean, that's a massive scale. Like how long does it take you to get ready to go on vacation? Yeah. So here's major upheaval, and Abraham's just as happy as Don Kennerson to get up and leave his home and go into a foreign land, right? Um, and he's hospitable. I mean, he's, when you go into a foreign country, at least I'm kind of like, what are these people like? And you're sort of hoping they welcome you because you're the visitor. And, you know, like I imagine most places can pretty well spot out a tourist. Um, especially if you're in Asia, you're going to stand out. Even in Africa, you'd stand out. In Europe, maybe not quite so much, but nevertheless, you're gonna look different. People are gonna look different from you. You're gonna look different from them. You feel like you're the kind of the oddball, but you're hoping. Yeah, I kind of think Americans are, for whatever reason, we're readily identifiable as, oh, they must be American. Um, but Abraham goes off into a foreign country and he's like, I'm the host. Um, I'm here to offer services and be a really good neighbor and doesn't necessarily uh, depend upon a reciprocal response from the Canaanites, the land that he's currently going through. And that's a pretty tall order. I mean, to me, that speaks volumes about the character of who Abraham is and what he stands for and how. Yeah. Yeah. So then that does get to the heart of what we're looking at in Genesis 18. Um, let's turn there. And who would read the first 5 verses of Genesis chapter 18, please? All right. So, when's the last time you invited a neighbor over and say, sit down, have a meal, let me wash your feet, make yourself comfortable? I mean, we may do that once a quarter for Lord's Supper service. But here, he's Abraham's assuming. What do you think Abraham's assuming here? These people, they've come a long way. They must be tired and hungry. Um, I want to make them as comfortable as possible. So, you ever had tired, hot, achy feet? Never, right? If you were a nurse standing on your feet all day on a hot floor, going up and down corridors, in and out of rooms, up and down stairs, how do those feet feel at the end of a day? They're pretty beat. Yeah, sand and grit and dirt and all kinds of things. And imagine they're wearing sandals. That seemed to be the footwear of the day. So you'd get even more grubbier with that type of footwear than what we might consider normal footwear today. So Airheads just really, they did. They they didn't stop at McDonald's and get a Big Mac with fries and say, chow down. Yeah, how long do you think it took to prepare the meal? What did he have to do? Yeah, you got to slaughter an animal, butcher it, and yeah, and then cook it up, prepare it. Um, the cakes maybe don't, not quite so long. You throw some flour, a little water, salt, flatten it out, bake it quick. You can do that maybe in half an hour, 45 minutes. I had servants, right?